Hello and welcome back to another episode of T&T with your girl G. I hope you are doing well and that you have had a blessed week. If you are new here, this is a faith-based podcast where we just talk about life, we talk about what we've been through, what we're going through currently, and just talk all through the lens of Jesus. So, I hope you are ready for another episode. I'm really excited because God is just speaking to me so much just about like our walk with him and just putting him first and making that conscious choice. And yeah, it's not always easy. It's not always easy, but it is the best decision. And so today's episode, I want to get straight in. I want to kick off, and we are going to be talking about growing. And the title of today is Growing is Painful, because it is. Let's be real, growing is painful. And looking at the definition actually of growth, the definition of growth is the process of something becoming bigger. And so even just like looking at that in terms of our physical growth of when we are younger and when we grow, like it's painful. Like there are things that we go through that is painful. Like when you have like growing pains, like in your legs and like even like in your like mouth when your like wisdom teeth come through. And another thing, as women, as we grow, as we mature, we go through a particular time of the month that is painful. Growing is painful. And then there's also the like mental side of it, like when we grow and we become adults, and that side of it is painful in a sense, in the fact that you almost like, well, you lose that like sense of innocence as a child. You become aware of things and you have to grow up, you have to pay bills, you have to be responsible. If you have children, you are responsible. Growing isn't necessarily always easy and plain sailing. No, it is painful, it's uncomfortable, and you have to deal with things and face things that you're like, oh, am I ready to do this? And it's like, yes, because you're grown, you have to face it. And then there's also then, as you know, as we have a faith, is our spiritual growth, and what that looks like for Christians and us, and like how as we read, as we come up against things, as we just dive into what God says, there is spiritual growth, there is learning, there is reading the Bible and becoming more aware, there is missions, there is things that God calls us to do, and there's a spiritual growth that we have to go through. And again, it can be painful. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about our spiritual growth, because this is a faith-based podcast and I myself am a Christian. And so I want to talk about that spiritual growth and just really highlight that and what that looks like. But actually another thing is with physical growth, like with the other two, physical and like the mental, and when we're an adult, they can be quite like morbid. And what I mean by that is you're like growing and like there is a point where it's like, oh, like when we're physically growing, like we're aging, there's a point that like, okay, we're no longer going to be in this body, we're no longer going to be in this earth. When we're an adult, like there comes a time like where, you know, we're no longer like here anymore. But actually our spiritual growth is a really beautiful thing, because we are continually growing, we're continually becoming more alive. It's really funny because like those two things, like as we grow, we're growing closer to death, but in our spiritual journey we are growing closer to our eternal life and our life with the Father, and you know, our purpose and our missions, and you know, all the callings that he has on our life. And as we grow more in that and who we are, we just become more and more alive. And I'm like, that's so exciting. And like, I find it really funny. I have this thing about birthdays. I love birthdays. Anyone that knows me knows I love celebrating, because I just think we're so blessed to like be alive, like to be here to be able to celebrate. Like, tomorrow isn't promised. So like being able to celebrate your birthday is an incredible gift. And a lot of like the whole world's view on birthdays and growing older is like, oh, well, we're growing older. Like, you know, we're just essentially getting closer to our death. And, oh, I haven't achieved these things. But for me, my outlook is, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I am like fine wine. I am just maturing with age. I am just getting wiser and wiser. And I'm just becoming more alive and more the person that God has called me to be. And that's exciting. And I wish like more people had that outlook. I pray that more people have that outlook, because it just changes the way that you celebrate things. It changes the way that you look at things, because this journey is such a gift, and the fact that we are able to become more alive as the older we get is just insane. It's incredible. And so I want to talk about like that and like our spiritual growth. And although it can be painful, it is so beautiful, and it is just walking a line and walking for God is the best decision. I think I say this in every podcast. It is the best decision you will ever make. But I truly, truly believe, like with my whole heart, that following Jesus, that following God is the best decision you will ever make. You will ever make in your life. Being baptized in the Holy and being washed clean of your sins and being brought to life is the best decision you will ever make in your life. And to know that you have eternal life with our Father, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I just get really excited. I just get really excited and passionate. And like I say, unlike the other two, spiritual growth is a choice that we make. We can't choose to like stop growing. No, like we're going to grow from a baby to, you know, to when we get old. We are going to grow. Like our body is going to grow and mature. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. We can't stop it. And the same with our maturity as an adult and like our mental, like we are going to, well, I really hope we grow and don't just stay in the same place. But you know, you are going to grow. You are going to mature. But spiritual growth is a choice. It's a choice that we make to be like, hang on, I want to know more. I want to grow in my faith. It's a choice that we have to make. And I think it's being aware of that. It doesn't just happen. I think it does happen in the sense of like, we have a discerning spirit and like a God who is at work within us. And so naturally, you can feel like you're not making a choice, but inevitably you are making a choice because you're choosing to follow Jesus. And so that is a choice that you want to grow in, that you want to learn more about him. And so it's a choice that you have to make. And for me, I'm just going to share a bit of a personal testimony. I have grown up in a Christian family and always known about Jesus. So I guess for me, I felt like it wasn't really a choice. Like my spiritual journey wasn't really a choice that I made. It was a choice that was made for me until a certain point. I gave my life to God at 8 years old at Spring Harvest Festival. And so that was a choice that I made. And then as I got older and the world becomes appealing and you want to fit in and you want to please your friends, that choice became, I chose the world more than I chose God. And to the point, and then I turned 16 and I chose, actually, no, I want to choose you, God. And I think that's another point to make. There's maybe seasons in our life that we walk through and we're like, actually, no, I want to choose you, God. And then other things can become more appealing and we choose that over our spiritual journey. We choose that over God. And then we can come back and be like, actually, God, like, no, like in all of this. And do you know what the amazing thing is? God is with you. He never leaves you. He will not forsake you. Like yesterday, I was at Bible study and we were reading Psalms 139, such a beautiful passage. Such a good psalm. If you haven't read it, please, I encourage you to read it. And it's like, even in the depths, you are there. And it's like, even when we choose to make our bed in hell, even when we choose to be in that place, God is there with us. Like, he puts himself there with us. So as much as sometimes we can make choices that are not necessarily the right choices, that are not necessarily going to bless us, God is still with us. I just want to make that really clear. And so the choices that I made, I was a bit like this. I would choose my spiritual journey and then I'd be like, it's not really satisfying me in the ways that I think I want to be satisfied. And then I would choose the world and then that would just like crumble and I'd be like, I'm sorry, God, I choose you. And I think it gets to a point where it's like, you need to decide what you want. You need to decide the path that you want to take. And for me, that came at the end of uni. I'd graduated. I'd been a bit like this, going to be completely honest, in my university. I went to church on Sunday, but still was living very worldly. And it was hard because it was like I was being two different people. And I had to make a choice to be one person. Who is Georgia Jade Charlton? Who is she? And knowing who I am only comes from knowing my identity in God. Like that, the only way I can fully, truly know who Georgia is by coming to the Father and seeking him and asking, who am I? My identity, my security is in God. So it came to a place of, at uni, at the end, I wasn't sure who I was. I knew that I was supposed to go a certain way. That was what the world was telling me, that I needed to pursue this acting career. And if I wanted to be then I needed to be in London and go to auditions and all of these things. But I just knew, like, God, I'm not where I want to be with you. How can I go into this world? How can I go and do acting and be all these different people when I don't know who I am? I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I've constantly been making all these choices that aren't good for me. And I need to choose you. I need to choose you. So yeah, at the end of uni, I decided to do a voluntary year working for a church, but also it meant that I did theology training alongside of it. And it was hard. It was really hard, I'm not going to lie, because I had to grow. I had to come to terms with some choices that I had made that didn't benefit me and learn the truth. And that was hard. That's a hard thing to do, to be faced with the truth when you've believed a lie for so long. And it also meant laying things down. It meant surrendering things to be like, God, I choose you. And it also meant being obedient and having faith, and not only that, taking leaps of faith in things that I was like, I don't even know what the outcome is going to be of this. And it was hard. And it's being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is so scary. It's so scary to bare yourself. Like, you look at Genesis and you look at Adam and Eve, and before sin came in the world, they were vulnerable, but they weren't aware. Like, they weren't aware of their nakedness because it was how they were supposed to be. It was beautiful. And then sin entered the world and they were aware of it. And they were aware of their vulnerability. And it was scary. And they wanted to cover it. And I think that happens with us. We're aware of our vulnerability and we don't want to expose it. Like, I don't want to be exposed, but we have to be vulnerable in order to grow. We have to be vulnerable with God and with people around us in order to grow. Like, I had to be vulnerable with people around me to be like, I need help. I need you to pray for me because I can't do this on my own. I need you, God. And with that choice of being like, hey, God, I choose you, it was so beautiful, but also really painful because God is a refiner, okay? So he's like, Georgia, this is who you are. This is who you are. But this is what you've believed. And I need you to get to the place of who you are. In order to do that, we need to chip away. We need to release these chains that you've been holding on to, that you've been allowing to like, just, oh my gosh, like I can't breathe, like suffocate you. You've got to let that go. You've got to let that go. And sometimes that can be really painful because you're comfortable. You're comfortable living the way you are. So becoming naked, like tearing away all of these things is scary and it's painful. But it's so healing and it's so beautiful. And so I had to go on this journey of refining. And when we want to become more like God, when we want to become more like our God-given purpose, there are different steps, there are different challenges that we have to go through. And it's like, once you've done one thing, you're like, amazing. And then God's like, okay, right, you've done that. You've conquered that. You've conquered that with my strength. You've done it. Now I'm requiring you to do this. And you're like, whoa, God. Like, sorry, I thought that was hard enough. No, you did it. You conquered it. You had faith. Now trust me for this thing. And you're like, okay. Yeah. Okay. And it's also like growing in the maturity of being able to put things down and not pick them back up again. That was a lesson that I had to learn in my spiritual growth. Boy, that took a few attempts. And that's the thing with our spiritual growth. It's learning. It's learning not to follow the same patterns. It's learning to put things down and not pick them back up again. Is a real lesson. And if you can conquer that from the beginning, then I take my hat off to you. But that was a real one that I struggled with, in like picking things up that I knew weren't good for me, but like there was comfort in that. And it was learning to be like, no, God, like it's not my plan, it's your plan. It's what you say. It's trusting in your will for my life. And the more we do things, the more God is just like refining us. And you look back and you go, like, I look back at like just memories. And I love memories and I love pictures. But it's funny when you look back at pictures and you see yourself, but you don't recognize you. And it's like, I look back at some of my pictures and obviously I have like amazing memories and stuff like that. But there are also some times that I'm like, look at pictures and I go, it's so sad because that girl really didn't know who she was. She didn't know her potential. But God, how you have brought me here and how I've been through those things. And yes, those things were painful. And it's painful to have like the harsh realities of, because let's be real as well, with choices that we make, there are consequences. There are consequences that we have to walk through. And those consequences help us in our spiritual growth because they stop us from doing it again. Consequences, good and bad, are there. But that's also, when we have a consequence, it helps our spiritual discernment of, hang on, that was not good for me. And I walked through that. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again because that was really hard. That was really painful, but I've learned and I've matured. And that's another thing, like that's another way that spiritual growth happens. And so, yeah, like I came to a place at the end of my impact year where I was just like, the most amazing thing was I was like, how have I changed so much in a year? How have I changed so much in a year? Like, and it was only through God. It was through making that choice of going, God, I know I'm not where I need to be. And I know where I want to be. And I can only do that through choosing you. I want to learn more about you. I want to do this theology. I need to know you. I need to know you. And he was like, yeah. It's like that picture of the door. And it's like, there's a door, but the handle's on the inside. And it's God saying, I'm here, but I need you to open the door. And it was a case of me going, God, I need you. And he was like, okay, open the door and I will come in. And you open that door and he comes in and he fills you. And I'm not saying that I don't have moments where I'm like, how am I going to do this, God? Because like I say, growing is painful. But there's also so much faith. The more we grow, we have faith because we've seen ourselves come through it. And it's not through us, it's through God. And it's like, well, God, you brought me through that. Like, you allowed me to grow. Like, that season was really hard. But actually, I am so much stronger. I have so much more faith. I have so much more courage. I believe in myself. I don't have those doubts that I had before because I've seen the growth. I've seen the growth of who I am. And it's funny because I'm someone like, I've got a very baby face, as you can tell. Sometimes when I look back on pictures, I'm like, I have hardly changed. But I can look in my eyes and I know that I've changed. And I can look at that time in my life and be like, I have changed so much. I may not look different, but inside, I am such a different person. I am someone who can walk into a room and be bold and confident because I have God. I have his spirit inside of me. And it's just such an encouragement that we are just continually growing in him. And yes, sometimes it can be really painful. Sometimes we have to go through that refining fire, but we come out pure. We come out shiny. We come out just purified and beautiful. And my encouragement is to just continue in that. Continue to humble yourself and say, God, I want to grow in you. Ask for the things that you want. Say, God, I want more wisdom. God, I want to be bold in this. God, I want to be confident in this area of my life. And he will do it. But I'm not saying that it's just like, yeah, boom, you're confident. It's like, no, when you ask for patience, okay, I'm going to give you areas where you can practice that. And it's like, oh, really, God? Like, I just thought you were just going to give me patience. And no, it's like, ask for wisdom. Okay, I'm going to give you areas where you can practice this. I need you to practice it. And when you do, you'll know. And I will gift it to you. And it's like, wow. And so my encouragement is to just be in his spirit and be excited that you're growing. Be excited that you are not going to be the same as you were yesterday. You are not going to be the same as you were a year ago. You are not going to be the same as you were 10 years ago because you are going to continue to grow in your God-given purpose. You are going to continue to grow and be that butterfly, just fly like that whole metamorphosis. You are going to be so beautiful. You just need to trust the process. You just need to trust the process and that he'll provide everything you need for it. It's not always easy. And that's why you need the right people around you to pray for you, to encourage you, to uplift you. But it is beautiful. and it is going to be worth it. It's going to be so worth it. And just growing in God is like the best thing ever. Learning more about yourself, learning more gifts. Like, ask for more gifts. Say, God, I want to do this. Gift me. Allow me to go into this area. Challenge me, God. You will surprise yourself. God will surprise you. Not you. God will surprise you. God will. And so, yeah, I'm just excited for you guys. I'm excited for where God is taking you on this journey. And I feel so encouraged. It's always good to look back. But not stay there. Continue to move forward. Look back, have a glance. Wow, God. And then go, yeah, I'm continuing to press forward. Don't stay where you are. Choose to grow. Choose to move forward. But yeah, I really pray that this episode encourages you. I pray it encourages you on your spiritual walk and your just growth with God. And I love you guys so much. And I am praying for you daily. And honestly, if you have any prayer requests, please leave them in the comments below or message me privately. Like, I want to cover you in prayer. Know that there is a community here praying. And yeah, I'm just so excited for what God is doing in your lives. And I just pray that he will just continue to bless you. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this episode up. I look forward to being back next week with another episode that God has laid on my heart. And yeah, I pray that you have an amazing week, that you have opportunities to share your testimonies. And yeah, I'll be back soon with another episode of TNT with your girl G.